Hey everyone, it's Ryan from the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here, back for another live Thursday night episode. Sorry we got off to a little bit of a late start tonight. We are up and running. The guest is more than willing to stay on the show and talk for as long as we want. So we're just going to keep him till we're done, even though we got a little bit of a late start. And he's going to love it because he's actually a really, really nice guy. Super excited to have him on. I have had these cigars in my humidor since we booked the show, I think two and a half months ago, and they just been just calling my name. They look so deliciously good, and I'm super excited to finally be able to fucking smoke one. So thank you so much to all of the show partners that make this show remotely possible. They're in the ticker below right here. Please support them. Their information's also in my description of the video. So please click on their links, support them, and follow them and smoke their stuff. Every supporter on this show is absolutely of the highest of calibers, in my humblest of opinions, including Abe DeBabda over at Smokin'. And while you're over at smokin.com, do yourself a favor and get the TGS tickets. Everybody saw the video before the show started tonight about the Renaissance TGS happening next year. Don't be like me. I can't go this year. Don't be like me. Do yourself a favor and buy yourself an in-person ticket if you can go. It's absolutely fantastic. It's Cigar Woodstock for anybody that can make that reference. Um, it's absolutely a fantastic time. You get 32 premium cigars this year. While you're over there, also check out the Smoke In Cigar of the Month Club. Best damn cigar of the month club. I absolutely promise and guarantee it. Now, without any further ado, because nobody really watches this show at all to not for this phase, and certainly not just to sit here and listen to me talk. So here we go. We've got the guest of the night. We've got Aaron. How you doing, brother? Oh, hold on. All right, how you doing? Oh, hold on. Wait a second. Now you have absolutely no sound, and that's not me. Give me two shakes here. Because I have, unless I don't have you coming through my headphones, which I do, but I don't have your audio anymore. Nothing for your audio. Let me refresh you. Nothing for your audio. You were just coming through perfect. Can you hear me? I'm so tired of this, man. The way shows start sometimes, dude. I just want to have a week where there's no freaking problems. Bounce out, bounce back in, bud, and see if that works. Um, yeah, I know, Richard. No, listen. The vast majority of these times, they're not always on me. Sometimes just audio doesn't sync up, whatever. I don't know, but let's go ahead and try it right now. Yeah, now we got you. Now we got you. Give me two shakes here to get your camera back up, and we will bring you in. All right. Interesting start to the show. I'm not gonna lie, and I'll just be a very upfront because I think it's fucking hilarious, guys. The beginning of the show, we actually started for about 10 minutes, and then I looked over as it said it was live. I'm looking on my phone to stream everything and share everything, and a fucking thing was live. Even though on my software it says it was live. So technology just sucks, guys. We restarted the show. We're back on track. So, Aaron, let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. But before we do, because I've got to light a cigar now, we're 20 minutes in and I don't have anything lit. I've got a drink next to me. I'm going to jump in and push us to the What Are You Smoking Tonight segment, sponsored by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Aaron, I will let you explain what I am smoking. But first, why don't you tell everybody what you're smoking?
So I'm smoking my new number 40. It's the only Connecticut that I have in my lineup. I don't believe in changing the wrapper on a blend and still calling it that name. So when I went to release my first Connecticut, I wanted to have a special blend that was just for being a Connecticut. Like its sole purpose is to be a Connecticut cigar. So created one for that. And because I smoke so many dark cigars, I need to switch over because my palate's starting to get overloaded a little bit. So I'm actually smoking my number 40 Connecticut tonight.
Nice. Tell everybody what I am smoking.
Okay, so you're smoking the Terrazzo. Now, the Terrazzo is my medium to full blend. It has a San Andreas binder, wrapper, which is my personal favorite wrapper. It has a Dominican Olor binder, which adds a little bit of what I like to say sourdough notes to it. And it's got Nicaraguan, Pennsylvania broadleaf, and Criollo, which is where that strength comes from. So that's the one that you're smoking tonight.
Well, after the way the show started, I needed something a little stronger. So I am going to share the show a little bit more. And Aaron, being super kind as he is, bared with me and said he still wanted to be on the show, even though I totally look like an amateur. This you wouldn't guess I was doing this for 4 years in February. So I'm going to give Aaron here an opportunity to restart what he was saying a little bit ago and kind of introduce himself, tell everybody where you're from, give everybody a little bit of your backstory, and kind of walk us into how you got into cigars in general.
Okay, so it's quite a lengthy story. So as best place, I'll just start at the beginning. So I was born and raised in Mercer, Pennsylvania, which is about halfway in between Pittsburgh and Erie, kind of where Interstate 79 and 80 meet, and I'm about 15 minutes from the Ohio border. Mercer is actually where Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails is from. He actually graduated high school the year I was born. So just to put an age on both of us, that was in 1984. Um, you know, Typical small town. I think we had maybe 2,000, 2,200 people in my town when I was growing up. Um, More of a rebel kid. Didn't really like authority, so got in trouble quite often. Um, but played outside, loved outside. My dad was a master carpenter, journeyman pattern maker. My mother was in human resources, so got to learn a lot when it came to working with my hands and building and the business side of things from my mother. Um, in school, I pretty much stuck to band. Band and lunch were the only two classes I got an A in. Playing instruments and eating food. That was about it. Really couldn't care less about any other subject except for math. I was really good at math. But that's pretty much where.
Band.
Yeah, I love. I played 23 different instruments. Started on drums when I was 4. My dad was a drummer. He was a drummer all his life, but he had a cover band in the 90s. It was called Even Flow, actually named after the song Even Flow by Pearl Jam. He took me downstairs one day when I was 4 years old. He had his 7-piece Ludwig kit set up. And then he had the kit set up that was his when he was a kid. And he turned on the radio and taught me how to play. The first song I ever learned to play on drums was The Ocean by Led Zeppelin. So started with that, and then because of Lisa Simpson and how sexy that saxophone was, I picked up saxophone in 5th grade and pretty much ran saxophone all the way through to where I graduated. It was in every band that the school had to offer. Jazz band, marching band, concert, pit. You name it, I did it. And then I would say I think it was around 9th grade. There's what we have, the Mercer County Vocational School, the VOTEC. And in 9th and 10th grade, they take you over there so you can start to figure out what you want to do with your life when you get out of school. So I don't really remember what I went to classes to see when I was in ninth grade, but in 10th grade, I remember culinary was one of the two. And in 11th grade, we were allowed to actually go to this. So pretty much what we did was the first half of our day at school, we did all the classes we were required to do. And then we got shipped over to the Votech and we would go to that class. So I ended up choosing culinary. So trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, as a kid, it's hard to pick what you want to do with your life. No kid knows what they really want to do. They have ideas of what sounds fun. With culinary, I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I love to eat. So let me just go learn how to cook. And that's exactly what I did. I went to the culinary program for 2 years and then ended up going to Le Cordon Bleu in Las Vegas. Now, it was a choice between the CIA in New York, which is a Culinary Institute of America, Johnson and Wales Culinary College in Denver, Colorado, and Le Cordon Bleu in Las Vegas. So ended up going to Le Cordon Bleu, got my associate's degree from there, got a diploma from Le Cordon Bleu International in Paris, and then just jumped right into the hotel casinos. And once I hit that, that was just an eye opener of how ignorant the food industry can really be.
So you went through going into culinary school, which makes sense now why you're a tobacco chef, right? To the kind of, if you want to look at it.
I traded recipes for blends.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it's worked out pretty freaking good for Guy. So maybe there's just something about a chef's palate that just can't be beat, and it appears that all you chefs seem to be coming over here to the cigar world. So, how does cigars come into your life in a prominent way?
Well, when I was 18, is when I bought my first cigar, and I mean back when you could buy them at 18. And there's a lounge down in Sharon, Pennsylvania. It's called Penn Ohio Cigars, and it actually was just recently sold to a new owner. But George was the founder of that lounge, and he had it for 30 some years, like 33 years, I think, before he finally sold it. And I went in there when I was 18. I bought a cigar. If I remember correctly, it was a Fuente. I just don't remember which Fuente it was, but it was a Fuente. And I realized because, when I was 15, I smoked cigarettes because my dad had cigarettes and they were easy to get. But I realized when I was smoking that cigar for the first time, there was something more to it. It wasn't just light it up, get a quick fix, 5, 6 minutes, and then go back to doing what you're doing. Like you actually had to sit down and take the time to enjoy it. You could not just rush that cigar. When I was living in Vegas, you talk to any chef, any former chef, any front of the house, server, maitre d', whatever. We're all alcoholics because it's just so stressful that you need a release of some sort. Well, what I found was when I actually had time to sit down and enjoy a cigar, all my worries went away. And over the years, as my palate developed, I was able to appreciate different cigars for what they were. Because at a young age, your palate doesn't know what it's smoking, and a good tobacconist should get a young cigar smoker onto to the right blend. Typically, starting them with a Connecticut because you don't want to overload them. Didn't really have that back in the early 2000s. You walk in, you just bought a cigar and you went. Now, thankfully, I chose correctly because it got me hooked on it because there were just flavors that I was tasting that at the time I couldn't identify what the hell it was. But as you get older, especially coming from the culinary field, like I'm one of those guys that can pull out all these flavors. And you sit around, I'll be like, all right, well, I'm pulling leather, I'm pulling coriander, and I get buddies that sit next to me, and they're like, where the fuck are you pulling all this? I'm like, dude, you don't understand how much food I've tried in my life. Like, I know what I'm tasting, and they have them. If you have the palate to pull them out, the flavors are there. But a lot of guys just want to cut it, light it, and smoke it. So it just depends on the type of smoker you are. But a lot of chefs will be able to do that, and then they're coming over to this field because it is like creating a recipe, for food. It's just using different tobaccos instead.
No, you're 100% right, and it's just like in the culinary world, learning what the tobaccos taste like, learning how to use and utilize the tobaccos every which way to the best of their ability, and obviously in the long run, becoming a Michelin star chef, which would be what I would consider to be a master roller, master blender.
There's okay. So the Michelin guide system it's set up a little differently, but what you're thinking of is like a master chef. So
Yeah, I'm
I
only
don't know
thinking
how
of
many
like the
masters.
highest of level
Yeah.
of
So
chef
right. So
awards you
the
can
highest
get
of the
is the
highest would
Michelin.
be right that, but it would be a master chef, and there's not many of them in the world actually.
Correct.
I don't know how many there are as of right now, but one of them I actually was able to. I had the privilege of working with. His name was Gustav Mahler, and Mahler is I don't know how to pray. He was German chef. Surprisingly, he didn't have the German attitude. But I was working at the I was at the JW Marriott Resort and Spa in Las Vegas, and he had a restaurant inside of there, which was called Spiadini. So funny that a German master chef owned an Italian restaurant, which was the weirdest thing. But I was actually able to work with this guy, and just the knowledge and the love he had for the industry was insane. But yeah, that would be like working with a master blender. You know, what they can
Correct.
do and taste, and they know how
Correct.
much of each one to put in. It blows your mind.
Correct. Absolutely. Um so what you just turned 40. We're literally months apart on age. Why a cigar company? Where does that even come from? Because, and I'm only asking because everybody you ask this question to, they always go, I don't know, because I was not thinking and I just decided to start a company because it was a hobby and this, and it turns into something bigger than what they expected. So obviously, a good chunk of the time it works out, but why not develop yourself into a master chef and travel the world and cook for celebrities? Why go
Well,
down Central America and play with tobacco?
well, I did travel the states with my band, uh, but I'll tell you that being a chef in Las Vegas for almost 14 years, it sucks the life out of you. To say the very least, it sucks the life out of you, and it gets it to the point where you just don't even want to do it anymore. And a lot of people that stay in it, they stay in it because it's all they know. I mean, I know how to do multiple things. So what I didn't get into yet was I ended up starting as I wanted to get back into music and having the funds, you know, working in Vegas at the time, I was able to make a good amount of money. I got back into music, and I had a little three-piece jazz trio. It was me, my brother, my sister. Wrote some songs, and one day I wanted to record them, so we went to Les Warner's studio. Now, Les Warner was the original drummer for the Cult, you know, way back in the '70s, and he had a studio. Went in, recorded some songs, and when I left that night, I remember looking at my brother and sister when we left, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to start a recording studio." And I'll never forget it. My brother looked at me and he goes, "You know, you don't know jack shit about recording." And I told him, I said, "Well, I didn't know jack shit about cooking, but I learned." So I set out to learn how to do it. My grandmother Susan actually gave me $1,000 to get computer and microphones, and well, in doing all of that, I was able to create music just like I create dishes, food dishes. So for me, it's anything that's artistic. I fall in love with it. If I can create something, that's when I'm happy. And because it can be quite a long story. I ended up starting my own band, and I had my recording studio was down on this dingy little street, which I think the only thing that was down there was like a pawn shop, a porn store, and my studio was down there, and it was called Mead Avenue, Meade, and it was down by the strip. I
The
had a
porn
recording
shop
studio
was
there.
called Meat Avenue, or
No, no, the street that all this stuff was on was called Mead Avenue, and Yeah, I probably should have said that in a different way, but no, the street that it was on is called Mead Avenue. I ended up naming my band that, named it after the street, and we went on to be signed by multiple record labels. I had contract with Warner Brothers, Sony Distribution. I had a bunch of stuff, and while I was doing this and doing like micro tours, I was still in the kitchen cooking. And I cooked for everyone. I mean, you got to imagine it's Las Vegas. I mean, people come into these restaurants like you wouldn't believe. I cooked for Nicolas Cage and Vince Neil. I was a private chef for Mike Sexton of the World Poker Tour and his family. I mean, just the people that you cook for is insane, but it also takes a toll on you and you really start to hate it. So the music was my avenue out of the kitchen. And then the more I did that, the more I realized I really hated that too. All the touring we did, you know, it was fun because I got to go on the road with my boys and we just, different city each night. We had a great time doing it, but let's face it, I'm on a tour bus with 7 dudes and it smelled like a fucking Viking ship. So I was over that shit real fast. And one day in 2016, I walked through the door. My wife said she didn't want to live there no more. And I was like, okay, you don't want to live in this house, you don't want to live in this city. Like, where do you not want to live? She goes, I don't want to live on this side of the country. I'm like, wow, it's about fucking time because I haven't wanted to live here in 10 years. But she's
Mhm.
from there, so we stayed all that time. When I asked her where she wanted to go, and mind you, over the years I had brought her back to my hometown so she could see it, and it was her choice to come back to Mercer. She wanted to go somewhere where it was peaceful and we could be left alone because again, Vegas kind of it ruins you, and you're
I,
just around so many people all the time.
I'll tell you this. So I had the luxury of going to Vegas my first time ever for CES in 2020. Now, I assume you know what CES is. It's largest electronic show. It's always in Vegas. It has always been in Vegas. Um, I will tell you, it is Hollywood makes that place feel bumping. You walk into some of the casinos and you just feel the loss. Does that make sense? Like I
Perfect sense.
saw so many hotel workers totally after shift, running slots, running card tables. And then you start talking to the people, a huge chunk of workers in Vegas have gambling problems and they go from work to the tables. Like,
Because it's an outlet.
were you ever into the gambling side of Vegas? Yeah.
I lost a lot of money. Matter of fact, anytime I ever lost money, I would take a glass or a cup away from the hotel, because you can walk in and out of these hotels with your drink. There's no open container laws out there, and that was around the time where I quit drinking. So I drank a lot of coffee, and I can't even tell you how many coffee mugs I have, and that every coffee mug signified that I lost money.
Yeah, it's just I went there. My buddy and I were playing the penny slot. I am the cheapest MF I know. Okay, I just want to pull it, watch the things ding and the lights light up, and get free drinks. So we're sitting there. I put in $2 into my slot, and my buddy's just feeding it right, fives, tens, 20s, tens, fives, so on and so forth. And 45 minutes, hour goes by, and he goes, dude, I haven't seen you put any more money in. How are you still playing? I'm like, dude, we're playing penny slots. He goes, you mean to tell me you're doing 1 penny per pull? I'm like, yeah, dude, I just want to drink and watch it just go ding, 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 ding. Like, I don't want to lose anything. I'm willing to spend the $2 for the experience of losing the $2 to have that fun. But man, I tell you, it could be a definite big ring. And so, what was your game of choice when you lived in Vegas?
Wheel of Fortune.
Is that a slot?
Wheel is a slot machine. Wheel of Fortune is so when I first moved there, I found out that a guy that I had worked with here in Pennsylvania at the Springfield Grill, he ended up moving out there in October. I went there in December. Well, I called him up and I wanted to have lunch with him before I left. I said, hey, listen, I'm moving to Las Vegas. Do you want to have lunch? And he goes, when are you going? I said, I'm going in December. He's like, well, I'm already here. So I already had someone I knew out there when I went there. Well, he helped me get a fake ID and we went at it, man. First slot machine I ever did was the Wheel of Fortune. It was the quarter machine, 75 cents each time. Get that triple crown, and that's how you do it. The key is you have to make sure when you go to cash out, it was under $1,999. That's when you don't
Yep.
get taxed on it.
Yep.
And then I just got hooked.
Yeah, you know, though, like I said, it was one of those things where I'm glad I went, but like Hollywood makes, and maybe this is a weird way to explain it. Hollywood makes Vegas in movies looks like it's just got these amazing smells and indoor lights and lighting, and then you get there and some of these casinos are ancient inside, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, it's complete lighting, it's lipstick on a pig, you know, you're watching this like so was Vegas all it was cracked up to be when you moved out there? Was it what you expected? And when you moved away, was it easy to move?
When I first moved there, I didn't really know what Las Vegas was. Um, I watched a movie called Fools Rush In with Selma Hayek and Matthew Perry. That was really like the first glimpse of what Vegas was. And then I ended up watching Ocean's 11, you know, with George Clooney and Matt Damon and all of them guys, and they did a better showing of what Vegas was, and that's kind of what hooked me to want to go. And then when I got there, I'm looking at all these streets, and I'm like, why is a standard road 10 fucking lanes wide? It's like that was a standard road. I mean, highways were massive. I'm like, and mind you, I don't like driving as is because I got really bad road rage. And I'm like, these people are just itching to get into a fight with. Like, I just want to fight somebody. Even just driving 2 minutes down the road, and then everything looks the same out there. Like, I can't even tell you for the first 2 weeks that I lived there, I pulled into the wrong complex. I didn't even know how to get home, and this is back before Google Maps and shit existed. Like, I had no idea how to get home because there was, you know, like a CVS and a gas station, and you know, all that was on every single corner. I'm like, where the hell is my house? And you just get lost in that shit. So is it everything it was cracked up to be? Sure. When you first moved there, 19 years old, yeah, man. It's especially when you come from a town of 2,000 people.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it was absolutely you know, it was eye-opening to say the least. But after about a year living there, you start to go, okay, where did I go wrong? Why am I still here? But I was there to go to school, so I stayed.
Okay, so fast forward, we're moving back to PA. When does this cigar company fit into place?
Well, when I moved back. That was right around the time where I was dissolving my band. I didn't want to do that anymore. We're back here where it's, you know, cost of living is cheap, everything is cheap, so I didn't really have to worry about all too much, and I had more time to actually sit and enjoy cigars. I went to a couple lounges. Um, was seeing that the cigar life back here was way different than it was out there. So out in Las Vegas, I mean, you got to be everywhere you go. You got to dress to impress, and it costs a lot of money to, you know, to have a cigar. Pretty much, if you're not showing up in a three-piece suit, you're not getting into some of these places. So coming back here, I was able to actually sit and enjoy the cigars because I had time on my hands. I'm not, you know, going balls to the wall, being in, you know, in the kitchen and then turn around and go into my studio and then having to go on tour. So I actually had time to sit and enjoy a cigar. And then I decided, getting out of the music industry, I missed that kind of lifestyle. So in late 2019, early 2020, I started a cigar talk show. So kind of like we're doing right now, and just it was me and a co-host just started filming it, and the whole point of that show was to educate the people on the industry, because, you know, they like to rope us in with the cigarettes and the vaping, and that's not what cigars are. So the whole point was to educate people, and then the more I did it, the more I wanted to be in the industry because it's now a new passion. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So culinary got worn thin, music got worn thin. This is another creative avenue that I can try to do something. So I started a mobile lounge. And I would take it to different parking lots and, set up maybe 10 facings and set up the outdoor chairs and all the tables and everything. And we just sit and sell and smoke cigars. And then one day I was decided I wanted to do my own blend. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, it's not when you don't come from the industry, it's not easy to just jump into that aspect of it. And then the more I did my show, I started to go to different lounges and interview. And I was lucky enough to go to the Grand Resort over in Warren, Ohio. And Luis Cuevas Jr. and Alec Cuevas were there promoting Casa Cuevas. And that was when Alec created the Sangre Nueve. So I always got the table next to the guys that were coming in because I would film, but I would also review on the spot. And Alec come walking by. I had just snipped the cigar. I'm doing the dry draw, and I was like, "Holy shit, this thing tastes like beef jerky." And I thought I was losing my mind. And I asked him. He was walking by. I said, "Hey man, can I stop you for a second?" He goes, "Sure. What's up?" I said, "Is this thing supposed to taste like beef jerky?" And he goes, "Dude, I can't believe you got that." And he sat down and I told him my story. 3 hours later, we had a handshake and their factory was going to take on making my cigars. That's literally how I got into the industry. I think I lost you. I can't hear anything you're saying there.
That's huge. That's not an
Yep,
easy
there you go.
factory. I coughed earlier and I hit the cough button. Um,
Oh,
and I hit it again. That's massive. That's not an easy factory to get into from what I understand. They're very picky with who they work with, and they don't I, I don't know of anybody specifically working with them. At least I don't think. I'm sure I do. But I've always heard they're great guys. I have not had them on yet.
Luis. So Luis is pretty much my main contact. Once I got rolling, it went from Alec to Luis Jr. And I mean, I talk to him every couple of weeks or so. I'll shoot him a text, see how they're doing. But I know of a few big companies that actually have cigars made by them. I was never told that I could share, so I don't ever say. But you'd be surprised at the big companies that actually go through their factory. But they are the nicest people you could ever wish to meet.
Yeah, no, I've been wanting to get them on, and I'm gonna have to go through Cigar Tib or something like that to help me do that. But no, I mean that's a hell of a factory for you to land right out the door.
And it happened that quick, dude. I literally, because Alex sat down. I mean, he only got up maybe a couple of times just to go talk to other people because his dad Luis was doing all the talking. But literally 3 hours later, we were in talks to make my cigars. I mean, that's just how fast that came around. I couldn't believe. I went home that night, told my wife, and she was like, "Really? This is what you're gonna do now?" I said, "I guess God works in mysterious ways, man. I had no idea what is gonna come to that."
So, what year was that again?
That was It was solidified in September of 22. My company hit the market officially May 11th, 2023.
Okay. And how has the market accepted the blend? I know our good friend Drew really likes it. He connected us together.
Yep.
And how has the business been going? How has the growth been? How has the market been taking it?
So 2023 obviously wasn't a full year. It was about 2/3 of a year. And 2024, I was about 60% more in business than I was in my initial year in 23. Now, I've never been in this industry before. So, like I said, I didn't come from the industry. So, like, I don't have all these connections. I have a couple of people that helped me along the way. Obviously, the Cuevas family and Tony Bellato from Bellato Premium
Yep.
Cigars, La Barba Cigars.
Yep.
He's actually my mentor. I have that dude on speed dial. And him and his dad have a couple lounges over in Niles and Boardman, Ohio, and Tony has been not just my biggest supporter, but my biggest mentor in this. He was the very first lounge to ever take my cigars. So I'm at an event. It was an Oliva event, and Tony was there. And I started telling everybody, like, "Hey, I'm coming out with my own, my own brand of cigars." And he comes over. He goes, "You're doing your own cigars?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "When are they coming out?" I said, "May 11th is when they're going to go to market." He looks at me. He goes, "I'll take them. I'll put them in my store." And then he walks away. And I was like, what the fuck just happened here? So about 2 hours later, when the event ended, I saw him again. And I said, "Hey, Tony," I said, "I ask you, why are you doing this for me? You don't know me." And he goes, "Because I know what it's like to be the new guy. The only thing I ask is that if you find somebody who needs help in this industry, who's trying to get into it, you help them." And I've been doing business with Tony ever since.
It's funny that you say that. So much of this is, and I say this all the time, and I feel like everybody that comes on this show kind of brings this up to a point. This is the only vertical of an industry that I know of that I'd say 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10 of most of the bigger guys, but 7 out of 10 times people will always help you in this industry. It truly is like kind of a competition, not for everybody, okay, but for a vast majority of people, competition aside, we're in the same world. Let me help you. The fires happened in the Dominican, took down ADV's, Adventura's facility, a lot of his tobacco. Everybody was stepping over themselves to help and give tobacco back out. Like, I couldn't imagine if Pepsi lost all of their soda or their sugar access. Coke would be like, "Hey, let me help you out."
They would not. This industry is a special industry because although we're in business against each other, we're not in competition with each other. So you may have, let's say, 10 different tobaccos that are Nicaraguan tobaccos. I'm not using the same region that you're using. And if I am, I'm not using the same amount. So my cigar is not going to taste like your cigar. So I'm not in direct competition with you. This industry is all about building the industry, not building the brand. Yeah. My brand's going to get built the way I'm building it.
Take.
Well, I mean, that's just how I look at it because, you think of Tony, right? So Tony uses the Adventura factory. And his La Barba Purple and La Barba Red are no longer in production until the tobacco can come back in. That man has been a brand for 10 years. He's also got Bellotto Premium Cigars. He had Lost and Found with Robert Caldwell, and this dude just welcomed me in and said, "Here, this is the name of the game. Here's the ropes. This is how you do it. Let me show you." And I have a limited series that I put one out in 24. It was called the Nano. I have a new one that's releasing February 4th. It's called the Seguido, which in Italian means the sequel. I got them from Tony. So I respectfully to him, I'm carrying on the legacy that him and Robert Caldwell did with Lost and Found because they're found cigars. I mean, I can't say where they come from, but they're phenomenal blends that nobody would have been able to try. But because of Tony, like I'm trying to carry this on because it's just a phenomenal concept. And I'm not in competition with Tony. We don't make the same product.
No, that's a very interesting way. So what did you say? You're not competitors, you're what?
No, we're in business against each other, but we're not in competition with each other.
There you go. So I like that because you're right. Nobody is making another number 40 that's competing against your number 40. So that's what you're referring to. But everybody is in business against each other in the sense of, I want my cigar to be bought over yours, but it's not that I'm making a better version of your cigar. I'm making a different cigar.
Making a different cigar. So we'll say it like this.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
In the culinary field, my job is to create the best dish I possibly can and I need my restaurant to succeed and your restaurant to go down. In this industry, you make friends with all these brand owners, and then you find out like, hey, what factory are you using? Because I have an idea for this cigar and I'm looking for this tobacco, but my factory that I'm using doesn't have it. Oh, well, call this guy. He can blend you something. And now all of a sudden you got a collaboration going on, and it doesn't taste anything like the other 10 brands that are being made out of that factory. Because by altering the blend one leaf at a time, you are completely changing the flavor. You're putting your own band on. Like, tell me, you see any bands that look like that out there? No, because it's my concept. It's my idea, right? I'm not copying anybody else. They're not copying me. Everything is different. Everybody's trying to help each other in this industry, not trying to tear you down.
No, that's.
I mean, what do you think EP Carrillo? Why do you think he blends for everybody? AJ Fernandez blends for everybody. These guys don't care. They just want to make a phenomenal cigar.
That is true. That is true. And vast majority of the time, that is really the name of the game. Because if they make a shitty cigar, it's still on them, and not just the company they're making it for. Because if it's terrible, I guarantee you the company they're making it for is going to tell everybody where they got it made.
Exactly.
I moved factories because of the other cigars. So it just hurts the industry and the person in the factory all around. What I want to do here is kind of dive a little bit into your blends, and kind of go through a little bit of. You have a really really nice website. Everybody interested, I always ask this question. I'm going to be doing this now, by the way, with guests, bringing them on, showing their site, showing the new cigars. I like doing this. This is kind of a fun thing. Kind of just brings a little bit more into it, shows your site. He does have a lounge, but for everybody interested, he does have a retail locator, retail store locator. So we don't have to ask where his stores are. Just go to LaVegaLounge.com. Bruce, I know you're watching. Can you put that in? Or Richard, LaVegaLounge.com. Put that into the chat, please. And
or LaVegaCigars.com. Both will take you to the same place.
And you can go right to their store retail locator. So let's walk through here. These are the different blends that you have, the 4 that you have. And we've talked about 2 of them, the number 40 and the Terzo. Let's talk about the Primo and the Secondo. Secondo. Jesus, I pronounce everything too English. Secondo.
Yeah, you're white. You're white.
Oh, I'm pale. I'm pale. I'm see-through. If I didn't have these lights on. So go ahead, let's walk us through the Primo blend and the Secondo.
So I'll start off by saying this. When I first decided to get in business, now my culinary background and my music background haunt me to this day, but in a very good way. So as a chef, we had to have something for everyone. So imagine doing a banquet for 5,000 people, okay? And then you get that random off-the-wall vegan that comes in. And then you get a dozen vegetarians that come in. And then you get people that have pork allergies and people who have chicken allergies. Well, we had to be prepared for everyone. We could, and that kind of a professional setting in Las Vegas, you could not say, we don't have food to accommodate you. So that's in my head when I was getting ready to do this. So normally when a brand new cigar brand comes out, they create one blend and 3 to 5 different vitolas. They'll do like a Corona, a Robusto, a Toro, a Torpedo, and a Gordo. Instead of doing that, because of my culinary background, I decided to create 3 different blends and release them at the exact same time. How I chose these blends, it was as how they were given their name. So because of my Italian heritage, I named everything. Everything's named in Italian, except for LaVega. LaVega is actually paying respects to Las Vegas. I just dropped the S's and smashed the word together to make one word. So everything is named in Italian. Il Primo means the first, Il Secondo means the second, and Il Terzo means the third. But these were all released at the exact same time. The Primo is a San Andres wrapper, which again is my favorite wrapper. It has the Dominican binder, which I chose because I love the spice that comes from Dominican tobacco. It's got Colombian, Nicaraguan, and Pennsylvania broadleaf long fillers. Now, the Pennsylvania broadleaf I use in everything because I think it's a very underrated tobacco, but it can be a very overused tobacco.
It's also very hard tobacco to get.
It is. But I like to use those in everyone because the flavors you get out of that, if you use the correct amount, it can really strengthen the flavor profile. The Colombian tobacco is a real smooth, almost citrusy tobacco, which is why I really like it. But there's just a little bit in there. All of these were released in the Toro version first, and then a year later, actually on the anniversary of my father's death, is when the Robusto version came out to kind of bring a little bit of happiness to a real shitty day. The Secondo is an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. Now, I'm not much of a Habano fan, but I needed something different. But that Secondo is actually, it grows on me every once in a while. Like I'll smoke it and then I'll just get on a rampage and I'll smoke, 2-3 boxes of it because I don't smoke it very often. But the Ecuadorian Habano, I like the Ecuadorian version of that because it gives a real creamy texture to the wrapper itself. It also has the Dominican Olor binder, just because I love the flavors that Olor creates. And then it's got the Dominican, the Nicaraguan, Pennsylvania broadleaf, and then it has the rare Piloto Cubano. Now, you got to think, the Piloto Cubano, you don't see people typically using too much, and that's because if you use too much of it, it becomes very floral. But if you use just enough of it, you'll get like lime, orange, lemon. You'll get a citrus flavor out of that if you use the right amount of it. So that's in there. The Terrazzo I already explained, which is the one that you're smoking right now. That Terrazzo was actually, I chose that blend for me because I'm a Padron smoker. So that cigar, now granted, it's not a Padron, but it's got the heft that a Padron carries.
It's got the body. It's got the body.
Right. Which is why I really enjoy that cigar, and that's the one I used to smoke all the time until I smoked too many of them.
And then we've got the number 40 down here as well, which is obviously your birthday cigar.
It is. So with that one, I was real hesitant to do a Connecticut, and I already said that I don't feel like you change any component of the cigar, and it's no longer that cigar. So you're not going to find a Connecticut version of the Primo. It just ain't going to happen. Well, when I set out to create a Connecticut, because I do not like Connecticut's, when I set out to do it, I had to do a Connecticut that I would smoke. When the test batch came in, there was 5 of them, and it was me and my rep Vince were sitting in my warehouse, and I lit it up. He lit up a different blend, and I'm like maybe an inch into this cigar, and I looked at him, I says, Vince, you need to put that cigar out. Now, anybody who knows me knows that's sacrilegious. I would never tell somebody to put out a cigar. But I insisted he put that cigar out. This thing just smoked so well. And for someone like me who does not like Connecticut's, I couldn't believe the flavor. He lit it up. We smoked it. We smoked the second one, and that was it. It was only one test run, and it was done. And I'm like, you know what? This is special because I hate Connecticut's. I need to put a name on this that is going to go with my enjoyment. Well, I was going to be 40. So I named it the number 40, and we released it on November 21st, 2024, which is my 40th birthday.
Awesome. And I see it looks like Stogie Press is your review. And as your first and only Connecticut and your first run of it, a 93. That's a really good rating.
Yeah, and I didn't even pay for that review.
Well, absolutely. So it's good to see that you your first one ever got a 93. That's really good. Now, I was wondering here, why don't you have the Nano up here?
Well, the Nano is actually right there. So the Nano is working its way out. I think I only have 2 bundles of those left. And February 4th, the Sagrado comes out. So Half Wheel already did the write-up on the Sagrado. I just have to update the website and get everything ready to go. They're in-house. On February 4th, they'll be shipping to retailers, and we'll run that all year. And when they're gone, they're gone. And then I'll say it now, 2026's limited series is called the Trilogy. And obviously you can see I'm going in order now. So the Nano started it. Now you see how small that is. That's like a 4x58, 4x60, give or take. I actually named that. My wife gets pissed every time I tell this story. I named that after her. So she's a like 5'1" Filipino lady, and Nano in Italian means midget. So I named that thinking of her. Now, how that actually came about, I was sitting down at a local cigar shop down in Bessemer, PA. I was sitting down with Joey. He's the manager. It's called the Cigar Vault. And I gave him one to smoke. I said, here, try this. I'm like, I want to call it the midget because it's like a short, stocky thing, but it packs a punch in flavor. I was like, I want to name it after my wife. And he goes, well, don't you name everything in Italian? I said, I do. And he goes, well, hold on one second. He gets out his phone. He looks at him. He goes, oh, Nana. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to call it the Nana. He's like, okay, Nano. And that's where the name came from.
That's
Me and Joe were sitting around talking about it and called it the Nano. So that's on its way out the door. The new one is a 6x60 box press called the Seguido, which in Italian means the sequel. And the Trilogy is actually sitting in the warehouse right now. I already have those as well. And they'll just keep going from there on.
Do we have a Lancero in the collection at some point? Like, call it the Stiletto?
We don't. That's good. If I ever do a Lancero, I will remember that and make sure I give you your credit on it. My rep Vince and I were actually talking about this the other day. I don't want to get too crazy like all these other companies with all these different sizes, and it's hard to keep up with who's creating what. And you got 5 and 15/16 by 53 gauge, and like I can't keep up with it. I do all my initial releases come out in the 6x50 Toro. Then they'll come out a year later in the 5x52 Robusto. What I'm thinking about doing is maybe once a year doing like an annual release of a very specific Vitola and only making a certain amount of those for that year. And then it'll get a foot band with the year on it that it came out and just be done with it. Because when you start getting into these different Vitolas, like it is hard because it's a niche market. Like not everybody likes Lanceros, not everybody likes the Gordos, not everybody likes the Torpedoes, and it's so much extra work for a fan base that's not going to appreciate it.
Yeah, I am a huge Lancero guy. I just want to show this though. This is pretty fucking impressive. So as we go through here, you've got 92. Everybody, this is his first 4 fucking cigars. All right, so the Primo, 92 from Stogie Press, 93 from Stogie Press, 90 from Stogie Press, and 93. He doesn't have anything under a 90 rating via Stogie Press. So if you guys but if you guys read Stogie Press, read the reviews, like the reviewers, trust their reviews, absolutely. What the fuck are you waiting for? Jump on his website, find a shop that sells either online or close to you by, and give him a chance. This one's really, really good. I absolutely totally understand why it got the 90. Now that's impressive. All right. That's a feat. That's an accomplishment. Aaron, your first 4 cigars you put out got 90 or above. What does that make you feel like? What was that first review like? Did you know it was going to be reviewed? Did you know it was going to get released, or did it just show up?
Yeah, so credit where credit's due. I found out about Stogie Press the same way I found out about you. So give credit to Drew. He's the one that told me about him. And I connected with Jimmy, who does Stogie Press, and I sent him down cigars, like he requested. I think I sent him 3 of each one, which is about standard, 2 to 3 of each one to get a good review on it. And I knew it was coming. Now, I don't personally care for reviews. Let me rephrase that. I don't care for the rating so much. I want to see what people are saying about it rather than the rating. I could care less about the rating. Coming from the record industry with all the different radio awards and shit that my band has won, like that doesn't mean nothing to me. Are people enjoying the music? If so, that's all I care about. Same thing with the cigar. I want to know what you wrote about it. Are you enjoying the smoke? Is it treating you well? Is it worth the money? That's what I care about. So when he first sent me the review for the Primo, because that was the first one, he did them in order. When he first sent me the Primo, I didn't even look at the rating. I went right to what he wrote. And it was actually a buddy of mine who saw it, and he goes, dude, you got a 92 on that. I was like, I did? Like, I didn't even pay attention to it. And I had to go back and look at all the ratings because I had no idea. I didn't even look at what the ratings were. But to see what he wrote, I mean, he was so in depth with it. He does reviews a little differently than I do, and he was way more in depth with it. I mean, he was pulling out notes that I didn't even get. And bro,
yeah,
I've been
Jimmy's
for
really
23
good.
years.
Jimmy's really good, and he's fair. And he's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been on this show before too. He's incredibly fair, and he's honest too. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's brutally honest. So to get a 93, a 90, a 92, and then a 93 again, that says a lot around the quality. But that also says a lot about Casa Cuevas, the blender you
Yeah.
chose, right?
Yeah, they do down there. They are just phenomenal at what they do. Now, I've never been able to meet Luis Senior, but if he has even a tenth of the love for this industry that Luis Junior has, like I'm in good hands with them. I mean, they make a fantastic product. They're I mean with the I mean they're hand rolled, right? They're handmade. So of course you're going to have clogs every now and then, but you know
Yeah,
when
of
I do, because
course.
I tell all my retailers, I'm like, look, if you have a customer and it's clogged, I said give them a new one, send it back to me, because when I get it back, I send it right back to the factory, and then Luis takes it down and he's like, yo, what the fuck's going on here? Why wasn't this checked? Like quality control is always being monitored. Actually, so the bands that you have on your cigars now, and I sent you the number 40 with the new band. When I originally started, obviously money is tight for a startup company. Which one did I send? Is that the okay? So I actually sent you one of the original bands, not the new one. So here's the difference. If you see mine, this is actually the newer band.
Yeah, yours,
So
the
the
new
one
one
you
looks real
got,
classic.
okay. So in order to get these released on time, with a Connecticut, I needed those sitting in my warehouse 5-6 months before they release, because Connecticut's are weird and you need to give them time to adapt before you release them. I the number 40 just came together so fast, it kind of got away from me a little bit. So those bands were actually done in-house while I was waiting on the production of my real bands to get done. But the reason I sent that to you is because that's the original batch, so it's going to have the most flavor. So my original bands for the Primo, the Secondo, and the Terzo, funny story on that. When I first started, obviously money had to go to certain aspects. The cigars were the important thing. So in-house, I personally printed and cut with a pair of scissors 40,000 bands. And they were on thick
How long did that take?
months. Months. So from September of 22, when I met the Cuevas family, to February of 23, which is when everything had to be at the factory so they could get the cigars to me on time. That, I don't know, whatever, 4 or 5 months, whatever that is, I spent literally every day cutting thousands of bands to get them done. So I ran those for about 7 months, 7, 8 months. I ran those bands. Now I got a call from Luis one day, and he goes, "Hey brother, I need to talk to you." And I'm thinking, "Oh fuck, what happened?" And he goes, "Listen," he goes, "You've been in business for like what, 6, 7 months now. You're doing better than we thought you were going to do. I have one piece of advice." I said, "Okay, what is it?" He goes, "Get rid of those fucking bands and get real ones made. The girls hate these bands because they were stupid thick. So like they had to hold them, extra
Yeah,
long to get the glue
yeah.
to stick. So we switched them over to the bands that you see now." But
You've had a really good run, man. It seems like you put yourself in a great position to really take off. How are sales going? How is your expansion? What's that
uh,
looking like?
so I it's going to sound very non-business like to say this, but I don't concentrate on the sales. Um, I really couldn't tell you what my sales look like. I'm more concentrating on getting reorders, meeting with new retailers, making sure I'm never back ordered. I've always got stock. I don't I don't concentrate on the sales because my mentality is if I concentrate on the sales and I tell, my rep Vince, like, hey, you're behind on sales this month, we need to amp it up. That completely goes against what LaVega stands for. Now, my background in culinary and music, everything it has come together to create LaVega. So how I do things here is just a culmination of all the good and the bad that's happened to me in my past. When you start concentrating on what your sales are doing, in my opinion, and only my opinion, is when you're more in it for the money than you are the love of your product. So, yes, I need the sales to happen because I need the money so I can keep making cigars. But I'm fine. I've got stock. I overstock on everything. I'm concentrating on making those relationships with these retailers. I'll worry about the sales later on. So I really, to honestly answer you, I could not tell you what my sales are doing. Now I know what sales did in 2024 because I just did my end of the year stuff. But up until maybe a couple weeks ago when I ran end of the year, I couldn't tell you what those sales were doing. Never paid attention to it.
So
I base everything I know off of how much my humidors deplete and how many orders I have to do. That's what tells me how I'm doing in business.
what's your growth plan then to kind of at what point in time are you because you I've been in sales over 20 years, 25 years at this point. At a certain point in time, you do have to look at your sales, especially when it goes to bringing on a rep. You have to make sure that the lounges are in there. So, how are you? At what point in time do you think you will be more concentrated on the sales aspect and growing the business? Because I mean, signing new lounges, that's kind of sales. I mean, that's worrying about your sales, reorders and stuff like that. So when are you going to flip that and really start pushing the sales in the shops that you have and kind of stopping the expansion and focusing on what you got?
So
Does that make
I, I,
sense?
I suppose, yeah, I suppose I should explain it differently. I do concentrate on sales, but I don't concentrate on the actual number. How I base my sales is how many times I have to order with the factory. And that's a mental note that I keep. So I've had to order from the factory more now than I ever did before. And the amount of cigars that I'm ordering each time is growing. So like the first couple of orders I did was only maybe 300 to 500 cigars. Well, now I'm ordering 5,000 cigars every time I put an order in. So I am concentrating on sales. I'm just doing it in a different way. I'm not looking at the dollar figure. I'm looking at the
Sure,
inventory figure instead.
sure. You're
And that
looking at
just that
keeping
just
it
keeps
full.
yeah, so it doesn't really change anything because I'm constantly going after new lounges. I know when the last time each lounge ordered. I know what they ordered. I just don't concentrate on that dollar figure. Now, the way I do things with these lounges is different from a lot of other companies. First off, I won't send cigar samples through the mail. It doesn't happen. If you're not willing to sit down and smoke with me, then I don't want to be in your lounge.
Okay,
That's what it comes down to. My
sure.
my father was old school Italian. He raised me that way. He used to tell me that if you can't look a man in his eye and shake his hand, you have nothing. So if I can't look you in the eye, shake your hand, and have a cigar with you, then I want nothing to do with it. I also don't want to be just another cigar on the shelf. I want these lounge owners and the managers and the staff. I want them to know me. When we do business, I give them all my phone number. Like, here's my personal number. You got an issue, call me directly. If you can't reach, my rep, call me. You put an order in, it goes out that day. Like, we don't mess around when it comes to that. I am so driven by customer service because of my background. I approach these lounges in a different way. Also, when I call my lounges to check in on them, I never call to put an order in. My philosophy is I'm going to call you and see how you're doing, how your family's doing, how business is doing. If you need an order, you know my number. You know my number. You know exactly when you need to put an order in, and when you're ready, you call me. But when I call you once every 3 or 4 weeks, I'm just checking to see how you're doing. And every lounge that I deal with loves that because I'm never
Well, that's a different
harassing them to put an
approach.
order in.
That's just
Yeah,
that's more of a
I don't
friendship
want to be that way.
basis. What's your kids? How's school going? How's the family? And then, it's what I tell my clients. Hey, listen, I'm going to meet with you. This is not a sales call. This is not a sales call at all. You're not going to end this thing with me asking for money in any way, shape, or form. And eventually you train the client to get used to your call. And then they take your call, right? Because
Right.
that's really what you're doing is you're training them that every time you call, it's not you asking for money.
Right. And that's 100%. That's what it is. So when I call all my retailers, they typically will answer the phone. Now, the only time I'll really say anything business related, we'll call it, is if I have a new product coming out, or if I'm running low on the limited series. Like I had to make calls today, and my rep Vince had to make calls today because the Nano's working its way out the door. Here in a week and a half, it's going to be done. We only have a certain amount of bundles left. The new one's coming in. So, like, do you want any of these put aside from you because they're in house? That's the only time I do business. If not, if they need something, they call me.
All right. I want to get into, just because I'm geeky in sales. I'm the guy that reads sales books and gets all excited for new sales strategies and training. I know I'm weird. I'm weird like that. Um, what is your approach as somebody that's got no sales background, came from the culinary? I think that's a correct thing to say. Would you, that you really have zero sales background? You started a
I
company
have
that's
none.
emphasis in selling. What is your sales approach when you walk into a lounge? Are you loud and proud, or do you kind of sit back and watch and see what everybody's smoking to determine if it's something for you?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this is typically how it works for me. I'll start researching, and I target a certain area, a city, whatever, and I'll start looking at all the different lounges that are in there. And what I'll do is I'll start making phone calls, and whoever picks up the phone and agrees to meet with me, they get the first choice of when they want to meet. From that first lounge in that area, I then start to spider web out and try to book an entire week of being in that area. I'll call them and say, hey, I'm coming in to meet with other lounges. I'll be there between these days and these days. Would you be interested in sitting down and having a cigar with me? I don't tell them I want to push my cigars on them. They know, they're not stupid. They know what I'm doing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just a different way of saying it.
Hmm.
I'm going to be in town anyway. Do you want to meet for a cigar? Yes. Okay, let's book it. We book it. I go in, we sit down, just kind of break the ice a little bit. And then it's about reading people. And that's where the culinary, doing the big banquets, doing the touring, having to talk to fans, that's where all that comes into place. I really got to read how they are, because you're going to know within the first 30 seconds, you're going to know if they're interested or not. But
No,
if they're
sure.
not interested, you can get them interested, because the best thing with me, and I don't know if you have like people can comment live on this, but
Hmm.
I did a podcast last week, and I forgot my hat because I wasn't able to go home to get it. So this hat is my brand. When I branded LaVega, learning from the record labels, I branded my hat instead of me as a person. And last week, Drew actually commented, "And where's your douchey hat?" That's why I asked if you had the comments on that. But what I'm trying to sell these lounges is not my cigars. I'm trying to sell them my brand and what my brand stands for and the integrity of my brand. If they like my brand enough, then we smoke the cigars. And then we'll smoke a cigar, two, three, whatever it takes. And when they say, okay, let me see your price sheet, that's when the business portion of that conversation starts. I don't bring up business. I let them do it. And if they're interested enough, they'll bring it up. If not, I got to have a cigar with an awesome person that day.
So do you ever like go into a lounge ghost style, like you're not representing yourself, you're just going in and then you just happen to like the lounge and then you try to push it there? I the reason why I ask is because some people will scope a shop out first, see if it's a shop that feels like what their brand represents. Because let's face it, some shops are dirty. Some shops don't empty ashtrays. Some people's pet peeves are not well lit areas, dark lounges. So, what is a LaVega lounge? And even though you set an appointment with somebody, would you turn around and walk out if the lounge wasn't to your liking?
I don't really judge the lounges in that way. I more judge um, how they take care of their customers. So initially, yes, if it wasn't a proper cigar lounge, I didn't want to be in it. And then I got to thinking one day, there was this beer distributor that wanted to carry my cigars, and at first I was 100% against it because I'm like, okay, I don't want to be in a beer distributor. But then I got to thinking, wait a minute, from the culinary standpoint, why am I denying people that are going in there to grab their beverage of choice? Why am I denying them my cigars? So now I'm forcing them to spend their time and their gas money to go to another lounge when they could just grab it right there. Maybe they don't go into cigar lounges because they don't have time. They just want a one-stop shop.
Or they feel intimidated?
So possibly there's a lot of reasons that it could be. So I actually changed my view on that, and we put my cigars into this beer distributor, and they do good. People enjoy them because they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna grab my case of beer. They get up to the counter and they go, wait a minute, you got cigars in here too? Well, let me just grab a couple of them. Why am I going to deny a customer being able to get my cigars?
Well, yeah, because for all
So
you know, they might be also a lounge member, and they take that band and they go
exactly.
back to their lounge and they say, "Hey, I just stumbled upon this at ABC Liquors over here, that
Yep.
has a small little walk-in humidor or whatever, and I really liked it. Let's put it on your shelf." So you're not limiting yourself. You're not turning your nose
Right.
up.
Right. Now the other side of it is because I don't judge these lounges based on, the lighting and all this other stuff. What I'll do is I want a chance. So I give everyone a chance. If they're willing to give me a chance, I'm willing to give them a chance. Now, in the first 6 months, I'm watching everything you do. And if you do something that I don't like, if you're not representing your lounge properly, if you're not taking care of your customers properly, if you're using, tap water instead of distilled water in your humidor, like I'm watching all this stuff, I will pull my cigars out at that point
Yes, people,
because
that is a
you're
thing.
not. Oh, it is a thing, 100% a thing. There's actually a lounge that I'll keep it professional. There's a lounge that I am no longer a part of because of how they operate and more facets than one.
Hmm.
And I watch everything. I watch everything. I want to see how they do it, how they interact. And if it's not up to my standards or if I'm not up to your standards, you part ways, you move on. There's plenty of lounges out there. I would rather be in 100 high quality lounges that take care of their customers and keep the product fresh and ready to be smoked than to be in 1,000 lounges to just say I'm in 1,000 lounges. Like that's not why I'm in business. I'm in business to make memories. Money will come. Memories is everything.
And you make a valid point, because I mean, especially when the water. I just want to touch on it. The water thing to me is something I just don't fucking understand. You have sometimes, in some cases, $100,000 worth of cigars in your humidor, and you're using tap water, which most people don't understand. The reason why you use distilled water is because it mystifies in the air. The tap water mystifies all those minerals in that water, and it settles on the cigars. And if you don't have wrappers on the cigars, it's going to settle on the actual wrapper of the cigar instead of the cellophane of the cigar. and that is a huge no-no. That is a if you ever experience that, turn around and walk out because those cigars are being mistreated and mishandled, and probably won't smoke necessarily the correct way. But
Well, that and that you can taste that
the
mineralization
minerally,
that
yeah,
let's take Padron for instance. They don't put them in
mm-mm,
cellophane.
mm-mm.
Those are open to box and they're sitting there ready to go. So that sediment lands on the cigar and you can taste it. And you're like, why does this taste funky? Why is
Tastes
it
off.
stale? Oh,
Yeah.
it's weird, and that's exactly why.
So that's a big pet peeve of mine here. So do you when you are introducing yourself to a lounge that you walk into and you have a meeting, are you one that talks to all the staff to is there a certified tobacconist here? Is there like what are your minimum requirements for a lounge where you're
Uh,
like, dude, I just can't sell to you. I can't.
I don't have any. My requirement is that you are willing to meet with me because I won't. I mean, I go into lounges, but I'm very business oriented. I do not spend money to go on a trip if I don't already have things planned out. Now, what has happened before is some of the appointments that I had got canceled for some reason. We'll just randomly show up into a lounge, but I don't go in to sell. Now, when I'm in there, if the owner happens to be there, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm in town. My meeting got canceled. We found your lounge on Google. We just want to sit and have a cigar." And then in conversation, eventually it'll get brought up. And of course, I'm armed with samples, so I'd be like, "Here, well, try them. Try one of mine." But I don't ever take that conversation business unless they want to, because I'm not there to solicit you. And that's one of the big reasons that I call ahead of time is I respect that these lounge owners and managers, they're busy. They have clients to deal with. And although I don't believe the customer is always right, matter of fact, whoever said that doesn't know the fucking customer. I do respect the customers as they're taking time out of their day to sit in your lounge. So you need to take care of them. You like that, did you?
The customer's most of the time wrong. The customer's always right mentality, I think, came from it's not worth fighting, just make it right. I think that's where that comes from. Not that they're actually right, because my experience in retail, which was my whole starting career at 16 to early 20s, very few times where I walked away from a conversation and ever actually felt the customer was right.
Well, I just think that people take advantage of that, and it's blown it up into what it is nowadays, where people can get away with it. And I just don't agree with that. But I do respect these lounge owners and their staff, and they're busy. They've got shit to do. So I'm not going to just walk into your lounge without you knowing that I'm coming. Now, if I'm sitting in your lounge and we're having a conversation, you go, "Oh, hey, do you have a sample on you?" "Oh, sure, I do. Do you want it?" Well, you brought that on yourself. You asked me for it, so that's not soliciting.
Floodgates open.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my opinion, right? I don't give my opinion unless somebody asks me because it's my opinion. I mean, what does it mean? It means nothing. But if you ask me, well, okay, you did that to yourself. Now you
My
got to be prepared for what's coming.
my favorite things to say is ask me no questions and I tell you no lies.
That's it. Don't ever ask a question you're not prepared for the answer.
This is true. And so that gets me on to a really great point or a great next topic. One of the things that I'm very passionate about in my life is mentors. I had 12, now I have 11. One of my very, very, very close ones, uh, was killed on a motorcycle a year ago, March 6th. Bradley Reith, I think it was the 6th, the 5th or the 6th. Bradley Reith is Zeal Cigars. I am as somebody that's been in sales for 25 years, the only reason why I'm in sales for this long and successful is because I have a lot of people telling me everything I've done wrong and how to correct it, and I've listened. And I'm a firm believer that without a mentor, you are kind of flying blind. without somebody to kind of help either whatever it would be, either shape that business mindset that because business thought is a different understanding and mindset versus I'm managing my own house finances. It's completely different within business. And I've always appreciated the direction of somebody telling me where they've screwed up and me learning from it. It doesn't mean I didn't make those same screw ups, but it just means I kind of knew what I was getting ahead of. What is your take on mentors? Do you have mentors? Do you believe in a mentor? And kind of before you go down this path, define mentor, your definition of mentor.
Well, I have different definitions for everything. I'll start with the first part. I do believe in having mentors, but mentors come in all shapes, sizes, and scenarios.
Yes.
So, like my mother and father were huge mentors for me. My wife is a mentor for me because they're looking out for my well-being. They're going to not sugarcoat it. They're going to give it to me straight, and they're going to tell me things I probably didn't think of. Then I start to break the mentors down into what circle do they belong in. So my closest mentors, business wise, would be a gentleman by the name of Mr. Corolla. He's been a hell of a business mentor. Luis Cuevas Jr. and Tony Bellotto have been industry mentors, but some of the best mentors I've ever had were my failures, because that will
Yes.
teach you right then and there what
Yes.
to not ever do again.
Yes. And you
But
transition to
you
the
know,
next.
you
Go ahead. Sorry.
you could be a mentor, right? So just a random person in conversation can say something that you might have never thought of. They mentored you. You just didn't know it. You got to pay attention to everything everyone's saying and take the best of what they're saying, take the best and leave the rest. They're mentoring you. They just don't know they're doing it.
You have a great outlook on a lot of things.
I've been
Like
through a lot of torment in this life,
you
brother.
really do have a great outlook, and I agree with you, especially about the failures. Now, this is one of my favorite parts to talk to people about because this is where you really understand who they are and what makes them tick. My belief in failure is without failure, you have no understanding of success because in order for you to understand where you are, you have to have been below that or started off below that in either a rough situation, bootstrapping stuff. If everything was given to somebody, I'm a firm believer they don't truly appreciate it.
You're
And
you're you're 100% right.
so tell us, walk us through really quickly of a failure in your life that you're willing to share that was life changing that you took and constructively made it great within your life.
Well, I'll segue into that real quick. I want to comment on what you said. So, I'm also a firm believer that if you all right, so I was forged by failure, where a lot of people are sharpened by success. When
I
you
love
well,
that.
let's take money. Let's take money for instance. Okay, if you come from money and you never understood what it was like to not have money or to work for that money, then you don't appreciate money. You spend it frivolously and you don't appreciate it. But if you never had it and then you earned it, you know what it's like to not have it. So you will do everything you can to never be in that position again. And I know quite a bit of people that are like that. Personally, know people that are like that. They're trust fund babies, and they don't have any They spend $100 bills like it's ones. Like when I spend money, it's an investment. They spend it just because they're bored, and
Yeah.
I can't agree with that kind of lifestyle. I also have a saying that I win or I learn. I never lose, because in every losing situation, you've learned a lesson. Now, if you don't learn a lesson, then you failed. But I don't fail
Yes,
because I'm
dude.
always learning something.
I love it. I love this. This is absolute truth, people. Absolute truth. Everything he said. You have to be willing to fail to ever succeed. You have to be willing to jump off and try. Don't be afraid of
Well,
it. It's what you learn from
think
it that makes you better.
think about it this way, right? If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning lessons. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. Now, it's the same thing that can be contributed to the following. I lived in Las Vegas, okay, almost 14 years. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine almost every single day, okay? You wake up every day and it's like, it's just another day. But I come back to Pennsylvania and I got 3 or 4 months of bullshit weather, and it makes me appreciate when spring comes. And now I'm happy to go outside, and I'm living at that point. I'm not existing. I'm living, because I know what I just got done doing for 4 months, and I'm dealing with it right now. We had negative degree weather. I mean, it's been cold as balls everywhere. Like I am anticipating spring getting here. I'm going to appreciate it when it comes. It's that falls into the same category. Now, to answer your question, I cannot pick out one particular instance where I've failed and learned a lesson. All I can tell you is life. I have made so many mistakes in life, uh, in every facet, and all I do is I calm down. I take what mistake I made. I analyze the whole situation. I figure out where I can make it different, and I try it again. For those of you who are not interested in, um, like you, the moment you fail is the moment you're not willing to even try. A lot of people fail before they even have a chance because they don't want to try. Oh, it's going to cost money. No shit, everything costs money. Invest in. If you're not willing to invest in yourself, then you're never going to gain anything out of it. You have to try something, invest into it. Most people shut themselves off before they even get started because they are too afraid to even try. It's like asking a question, right? I don't believe in stupid questions. If you don't ask a question, the answer is automatically no. But if you ask a question, you've got a 50-50 chance of getting an answer that you're looking for. Isn't that better odds than flat out zero?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that the
That's
only stupid question's the one that's not asked.
that's how I look at life. I'm always willing to try something. Like, dude, my time is limited on this earth. I never know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow. Tomorrow is never a guarantee. I live
For
every
sure.
day like it's my last day. And if my feet hit the ground tomorrow, it's going to be a good day. There's nothing that's going to stop me.
Right. That's very true. That's very true. How do you then take you have a great attitude, you have a great outlook, you really have a great mindset for especially the industry you're in, which has a lot of letdowns. I mean, let's be honest. As somebody that's peeked behind Oz's curtain for the last 4 years, there's a lot of companies that don't make it. There's a lot of companies that try really hard and they don't. How do you keep yourself going when you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I could just go back to being a chef and not have to deal with business thought after 5 o'clock. Like what keeps that drive going?
I would say probably so my dad used to ask me, why do you always take the hard road? And I would look at him, like, even when I was young, I would look at him, I'd say, what makes you think I see two different roads? I only have one road, man, and I'm on it. And I adapt as I go along. Um, I've been through a lot in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot of lessons. I've lost a lot of people, um, through just not talking anymore to, certain people, or death. My outlook on life is every day is a gift, and I cherish it. Every that's why I told you. If I wake up tomorrow, my feet hit the ground, and I look over and I see my wife, and she wakes up, it's going to be a good day. I also don't overdo it. I'm very I'm very planned out with what I do. This also, relates back to the culinary field. We have, um, what's called mise en place. Mise en place is it literally translates to prep in place or stand in place. What it means is you prep everything. So prepping is crucial to everything you do in life. A lot of people just jump into a wild idea, which I totally commend, like absolutely do it. But before I make a move, I've already thought of 10,000 ways it can go wrong. And I've created avenues to go down to make sure that if it does go wrong, I've got an immediate off ramp either way. And I can adapt as I go along. I don't look at anything as being out of reach. It's just how fast am I going to get there? So the way I do my lounges, right? The way I try to grow my business, I'm in no rush, dude. This is my retirement plan. I'm in no rush. I don't have a certain amount of lounges I need to be in by the end of the year. I don't have a certain amount of sales and sales goals that I have to hit every year. I'm just going day by day by day. And when you have that kind of mentality, you don't put pressure on yourself. And if you don't put pressure on yourself, you don't forget where you come from and you don't bite off more than you can chew. There's a couple people that I know that have made comments that I'm putting the cart before the horse because when I make moves quick. I'm not putting the cart before the horse. My horse drinks jet fuel. So there is no cart before the horse for me. But what they don't see behind the scenes is that I wake up every day thinking of everything that I'm going to do 6 months from now. So when you see, like I told you right earlier in this conversation, the trilogy, the 2026 limited series release, it's already sitting in the warehouse. I've already thought about it. I've already bought it. It's sitting, it's resting, it's aging, it's banded, boxed, ready to go. It's done. And then when that one releases, I'll have the following one in-house. I've got blends that I'm working on for next year already. I plan everything as much as I possibly can because we're thinking back to the kitchen. If I've got a banquet for 5,000 people, well, we've already prepped that 2-3 days ahead of time. So when the day comes and that banquet's happening, all we're doing is firing it all off in the ovens. We're cooking everything and sending it out. All the hard work's already done. That's how I do my business. That's how I operate life. I think of everything ahead of time. I do all the prep that I need to. So when the day comes, it launches. I don't have to worry about it.
You have a great outlook, man. You're very positive, and it shows that you've taught yourself how to be positive because of kind of what you don't let bother you, or at least what what you're telling us you don't let bother you. That you've actually had a lot of goose fraba style moments where you're like, I just got to sit, serenity now type
Yep.
things, and you've kind of just taught yourself how to keep your heart rate low and just perform through it. Um, One of the other things that I always like to ask younger companies or smaller companies about that is a big taxing uh, part of the company is the upfront expense. Most people don't understand that don't watch shows like this or that aren't geeky. You guys don't pay for cigars when they hit the country. You guys pay for cigars when they're made. So if they sit for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, you've already paid for them and you're not recouping anything. So, how difficult has that been to kind of set your own internal expectations around when things are going to be ready? How do I dole money out? Where do I spend on projects? Do you understand what I'm asking?
So it starts with the initial batch. Okay. So my initial batch that I did was 300 cigars. And I had the money saved aside. So that initial investment you do, you have to be prepared to never get that money back again. That is my way of investing into myself. I am prepared to lose this money. When that 300 cigars came in, I knew where it was going and how much money I was going to make. What I did was I turn around and I take the money that was spent, that's gone. I take all of that and I look at that entire, let's say I spend $3 on a cigar and I ordered 300 of them.
900
Well, that
bucks.
initial that initial $900 is gone. So when I bring that money in, let's say I sell the cigar for $5. It's not a $2 profit in my mind. That's a $5 profit. And the reason it's $5 is because that initial $900, it's gone. I'm never going to get it back. That's my initial investment. So now I'm actually profiting $5 a cigar. And when I sell those, I now take all that profit and I order another batch. And then that batch comes up and I profit again. And then when I go to order the third batch, now instead of 300 cigars, I'm buying 500 cigars. And I just grow it over time. A lot of companies, and I can't speak for everyone, a lot of companies, what they'll do is they're so concentrated on the money that they're going to make. They don't order over time because I want 100 stores right now. No, man, that's the wrong way to go about it. You got to do a little bit at a time. People want to reach the goal faster than they should. Enjoy the journey, because once you get to the goal, where the fuck you going now? You've hit your goal. So my goal is the day I retire, I've hit my goal. This entire next 20 years, 30 years if I'm lucky that I'm going to do this, bro, this is the journey. I want this journey to keep going over the next 3 decades, because the goal means I'm done. So it's just perspective. It's how you look at it. Everybody looks at it in a different way. I love the journey. I'm not ready to hit the goal yet. I just do it slowly. And then I'm never behind on funds because of it. I'm always keeping up with everything that I need, and I just grow myself over time.
So are you supporting yourself with LaVega?
I have since day one.
See, that's, again, you've done this very smart. Like you've done this in a way that you were into black from day one. There's a lot of companies, a lot of smaller companies that 3 years they're still in crazy amounts of debt. So is this your full-time gig now?
Well, I just opened a lounge out of frustration. So between that and my brand, those are the two things I have going on. The lounge, funny enough, so I put a big sign out in the yard of my headquarters this past year. And over the course of about 9 months, I had people calling me, asking me, like, are you still open? What time do you close? And I'm like, I am not a retailer. I'm a manufacturer. But in this small town that I'm in, nobody knows what that is. So they saw LaVega Cigar Co. They're thinking it's a cigar lounge. So in October, I was sitting in my warehouse, and I have an open door policy, literally an open door policy. I've got a massive bay door where I can get shipments in. And I always tell people, if you see the door open, bring a cigar, sit down, and let's smoke. Like, name another manufacturer that does that, right? I do that. If you see the door open, pull in the parking lot and just sit down and smoke. Well, I kept having all these people stop wanting to buy cigars. I'm like, all right, I'm not a retailer. I'll sell them to you, but I'm not a retailer. We don't care. We just want to buy cigars. So I'm sitting out there one day. I had 5 phone calls asking me what time I closed. 2 people stopped in to buy cigars. I'm sitting out there in my warehouse with a group of buddies, and these people just kept coming in. And I called my wife. I said, if one more motherfucker shows up here and asks me to buy cigars, I'm building a lounge. 10 minutes later, dude stopped and bought 2 boxes of cigars. So I built a lounge.
How's the lounge?
And when I say I built, it's been interesting because I've never been on this side of things before. So I'm kind of getting a taste of my own medicine with dealing with reps, but it is interesting. But when I say I built this lounge quickly, I mean, in 2.5 days, me and a buddy of mine built this from the ground up.
That's funny. That's funny. So did you make Vince sell you LaVega Cigars for your own lounge, or did you agree to go ahead and take on and place an order?
No, they're the entire collection's in here. Matter of fact, I've got some personal reserves and rare reserves in here that you can't get anywhere else. And these are just a collection of cigars that were found cigars, I think is what the industry calls them. Kind of like my limited series, where they were just sitting in a factory somewhere, forgot about. And these are things that I would smoke personally, and they're so tasty. I wanted to open them to the public. So if you actually come to my lounge, you'll get more than just my core line brand. You'll get stuff that you'll never see anywhere sitting in here.
Now, do you carry other brands in that lounge as well, or is
Oh,
it just LaVega?
absolutely. So I have two cabinet humidors. I've got in the two cabinet humidors, which mind you, they're only about like 3 foot wide, 5 feet tall. They're not big cabinets. I've got a total of 68 facings in these two
Wow.
cabinet humidors. I have one that is specifically a boutique collection, and the other one is the legacy collection. Every cigar brand that's in the boutique are buddies of mine, brands that I know personally. And I put them in there because I know them personally. In the legacy cabinet is all your standards. You got your Leaf by Oscar, the Olivas, Padron, Fuente. I've got Opuses, and I've got Davidoffs in there, Perdomo. I've got stuff that people know by name. But the boutique, I take more pride in the boutique because these are hardworking motherfuckers that I know personally. And as soon as I was opening a lounge, that's the first thing I did was call them up. Like, yo, I'm opening a lounge. I want your cigars.
Yeah, I look at boutique the way I'm not really a sports guy. I used to be, but I'm not really much anymore. But the way I look at boutique is like college sports versus pro sports. Pro sports, these guys, and wasn't always the case. Today's pro sports, today's pro football, I should say, college football versus pro football. These guys will get hit and they're just out. Oh, I sprained an ankle, or oh, my elbow hurts. These college guys will play with broken hands,
Yep.
broken fingers. And yes, that did happen in football in the 90s and early 2000s, but the mentality has changed. Oh, I'm hurt. I'm going to sit out for a lot of the guys. I think you get more heart and soul when you're not being paid to play the sport because you're playing it because you love it. You want to. That's the way I look at the boutiques is these are guys that are trying to make it. They haven't necessarily, not all boutiques, some boutiques haven't necessarily made it, but man, when you try their stuff, it's not boring. It's a well-written piece of you know, it it's bright, it's flavorful, it's not boring. It doesn't taste like every other line. Without naming any brands, there's brands with over close to 100 different lines. Like you're like, how could you even
Well,
have a name, an understanding of what you even have in your catalog? So that's my take on
that's
boutiques.
that right there plays to what I said earlier. So these other guys that they've already hit their, they've already hit their mark. The boutique guys are still on the journey. So they're pouring their heart and their soul into it because they're on the journey. The hardest part with any company, and I don't care what industry you're in, the hardest part with any company is not forgetting where you come from and why you started doing it. Because when you get to the point where you're selling millions of cigars a year, it's easy to forget yourself. Now, luckily, I've got a wife and a mother that have no problem kicking me back down to earth. So I don't have to worry about getting a big head. I've already had a big head, and they're the first ones to fight me on it. But you got to remember where you come from and why you got into doing what you're doing. If you lose sight of that, you've hit your end goal, because now it's just about putting out new cigars with bands on, different bands on them, and making money. And that's just not what I'm in it for. Like, I'm an artisan. I surround myself with artisans. I love to create. If I can't create anymore, I'm going to get out of it. That's why I left culinary. It's why I left music. I couldn't create anymore. It wasn't fun anymore. So I'm trying to be careful with this because I really want to do this forever, like for as long as I can. I have to be careful, because if I'm not having fun, I don't care. I could be making millions of dollars right now. If it's not fun, I'm done.
Yeah, that's find something you do for the rest of your life. You never actually work. And I'm a firm believer in that as well. Do you have children?
I don't.
No. Okay. So you're not doing this to hand anything off.
I wouldn't hand anything off anyway. You didn't earn it. You ain't getting it.
Okay, okay, the Warren Buffett approach. Each one of my kids only gets $1 million, and then the rest of it goes
And
somewhere else.
let me tell you something, bro. I didn't come from money. My parents were hardworking, and they were scraping just to make sure that we had what we need. And I didn't come from like a poor family. I'm not saying it that way, but I didn't have I didn't have the latest and greatest all the time. We had some really cool shit, but I didn't have the latest and greatest. Um, I will go to the grave with my money. I will leave enough for my wife to outlast me, but I'm going out a certain way. I'm not giving anybody my stuff. I worked for that. If you aren't prepared to work for it, you ain't getting it. Now I do have nieces and nephews, and they're see my niece Olivia is 5, Nicholas is 3, gonna be
Oh,
4, and
long ways
Valentina.
off.
Yeah, but I've already given him cigars, but my brother took them and smoked them himself. So I
It's
mean,
funny.
I don't care.
My daughter's
I'll
got
give them to him, but
my daughter's got those little rubber chewies, like rubber straws that kids could chew on. She's 3.5, and we'll go for a walk, and she'll be like, "Daddy, can I take a cigar with me?" And that's what she calls her cigar, the little rubber straws. So she puts it in her mouth like this, and we'll just walk
nice.
around the town.
Well, it's
So,
like them little candy cigarettes when we were kids, right?
oh
You
yeah,
trick or treating,
don't touch those anymore. Yeah, no, totally.
right?
But my
No, like
wife smokes.
if my nieces and nephew wanted to get into this business, I will never hand it to them, but I will teach them how to do it. And if they can prove that they want to do it and that they enjoy it, I have no problem handing the company off to them.
Well, keeping it in the family is definitely a great way to do it, as long as you can put them through all the trials that they need to be able to prove they can do it, instead of get in front of their skis. Um, Here in closing, I have a few lightning round questions I typically always ask everybody. We already got your favorite rapper, which was San Andreas rapper. What is your favorite size?
That depends on the time of year. If it's spring, summer, fall, Toro. If it's winter, Robusto, and that's only because in the winter I'm smoking more of them. So I typically smoke the smaller Vitolas.
Okay. What is your favorite cut?
Straight with my scissors.
Okay. Okay. What is your favorite pairing?
Depends on the cigar, depends on my mood, and depends on the weather. Naturally, I'm going to go right to a dark Maduro cigar of some sort and possibly a medium Americano coffee.
What do you do for fun that is non-cigar, non-music related?
I don't.
Okay, so your life is cigars, music. So then what do you do when you're not Aaron from LaVega Cigars?
I'm Aaron in LaVega Lounge.
So you eat, drink, and breathe everything in this world.
I absolutely. I mean, I do have a home life. It's not a lot, but I do have it. I mean, I spend time with my wife. We take my dog to the park all the time. We walk them, but any any moment that I'm not spending with her, I'm either canning my food or I'm down here at the lounge or I'm in my shop building something. It just depends. I like to be busy.
What's something that most people don't know about you that you're willing to share?
I have the ability to be nice, but I don't do it very often.
I love that answer. Are you a reader?
No,
What's your favorite band?
Def Leppard.
Really? The one arm? Really?
Yeah, Rick Allen. Yeah, the
Yeah.
one arm.
I
My
just
that
don't
was the
hear
first.
that very often.
Well, Okay, so that was the first concert my parents ever took me to. It was right after Stephen Clark died. It was 1991 at the Gund Arena in Ohio. I think I was 6 years old. They opened with "Let's Get Rocked" from the Adrenalize album, and I was hooked ever since. Now that's in that style of music. If you want to ask me what's my favorite jazz musician, I would tell you Dave Koz, my favorite saxophone player.
Okay, see, I'm going to say Charlie Parker, personally.
Well, now you're talking old school jazz. So
That's
Charlie
what I played.
Parker.
I played trumpet for 9 years. My warm up was Miles Davis's warm up. Well, 4
Okay,
pages of it.
so I'm more into the like urban smooth jazz. So like Dave Koz, Mindy Bear, Boney James, Michael Lington. Like
Okay.
that's the kind of jazz that I listen to.
Okay. Okay. Um, if money was not an option for you, or was not an issue for you, where would you go and take a trip with you and your wife? Anywhere you want.
Um, that's a hard one because where I want to go, she does not want to go.
Well, I said you
I would.
want.
Okay, so me, I would probably go to either the Dominican mm, or probably over to Italy.
Okay. Okay. If you could have a cigar, a drink with anybody in the world, in the history that's non-family, who would it be? And it could be somebody, Abraham Lincoln, just non-family, doesn't have to be living, but who would you like to have a cigar with, and what LaVega cigar would you bring?
Non-family, um, probably Fidel Castro.
Okay, so we're going to have to unpack this answer a little bit. First, though, what LaVega cigar would you bring him?
I would probably hand him the Secondo.
Okay. I happen to know that he really smoked a lot of Panatellas, so that would definitely be a thicker cigar that he would be used to. Why Fidel Castro?
Well, definitely not because of his politics, because he
Well, of
was
course, he
just
was a jerk.
an absolute asshole. But his love for cigars, that would be a topic that there would be no violence. We could actually just talk cigars.
Okay, yeah, because he started Cohiba. He's the reason why Cohiba was created, because it was his security personnel that had a cigar that gave him one, and he loved it. It happened to be just this random roller, the way I understand the story, and that he created Cohiba using that random roller. Um,
Yep.
and I think that was the one that he created, was Cohiba.
Yeah.
Um,
When you take away the fact that if you were to get him out of wanting to be a maniacal overlord and condemn his people, you get him on the topic of cigars. His love for cigars is the same as our love for cigars, and I
sure.
think he would be an awesome person to talk to for the cigar reason, not for anything else, just for cigars.
Yeah, I had George Rico on my show. Very first show I ever had. Very first show I ever did. And it was like February 26th of 2020 or something like that, or 2021. And he's Cuban descent, and I asked him the question of, put Castro's bullshit aside, do you think cigars would be what they were if he didn't become the dictator within the country he was, and take over the cigar factories and push the families to Nicaragua and Honduras and Dominican? He said no. That is the only silver lining that you could potentially even deem from Castro's rule, is the unintended but great side effects he had on the cigar world. Would you agree?
I would.
And so I don't think, do you think cigars would be where they are, or do you think cigars would still be all made in Cuba most likely, or maybe a few here and there in other countries?
I think it would have eventually got out. It just wouldn't be what it is today because of the way he was, and everybody was trying to escape him. They all pushed to get out, and when they got out, they started realizing that the climate and the soil was so much different, so much better in some cases, that that's really what drove them to go and explore these new valleys to create. So it wouldn't have had the effect that it had today. I still do think they would have made it out, but not to the extent of what we have tobacco now.
Yeah, because the biggest issue I've always heard with Cuban tobacco in the last 15, 20 years is it's overfarmed. Is they're not doing the rotations correctly. They're draining the soil of all their nutrients, and their crops just not giving the quality that it once was. So, um, if you could, if you could be in any lounge that you wanted, what is a whale? What is a whale lounge for you? Like, oh my God, if I got in here, wouldn't change my life, but my God, would it be awesome to say I'm here?
Probably the Edward Sahakian Lounge in London.
Okay, so you pulled Edward Sahaki, the Davidoff, out of your pocket on that one.
No, no, not
Wow.
not Davidoff of London. The Edward Sahakian Lounge in London.
I thought the Sahakians ran the Davidoff
S-
Lounge.
So Edward Sahakian
His
and
dad
Eddie
recently
Sahakian,
died,
they
didn't he?
have. Uh, I don't think no. I think Edward's still around.
Oh, okay.
But they have Davidoff of London. But then there was a hotel that opened up and sought out Edward and said they wanted him to open his own lounge, and they named it the Edward Sahakian Lounge. And I can't remember what hotel it's in, but that would be not the Davidoff one, but his own personally named lounge. I would want to be in.
Wow, I didn't realize that Edward had his own. I've always known him as being tied to the Davidoff Lounge.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, why there? Like that's such a the taxes, the imports, the regulations. Why that lounge? Is it the prestige?
Because no, it's because Edward and his son Eddie have such a tremendous love and joy for this industry. I know my cigars would be taken care of there.
Okay. Okay. If you were to have a U.S. store, where would that be?
Oh, I really don't have an answer for that one because I'm still exploring the U.S. myself. I only know of the Sahakians because of the Davidoff and because I'm a fervent watcher of Kirby Allison, is how I
Yep,
found out about
Kirby.
Edward Sahakian's lounge.
Yeah,
So
I've
as far as
not seen that.
U.S. lounges, actually no, I could tell you one. I could tell you one right now. I would want to be in Anthony's Cigar Emporium in Arizona.
Okay, okay, that's a big shop.
I actually buy from them, and they've got like I don't know, I think 7 or 9 locations. I think I would just want one. I would want the one in Phoenix because I've got buddies in Phoenix. My wife and I used to go to Phoenix for like little vacations. My tattoo artist lives in Phoenix, so I'd want to be in the Anthony Cigar Emporium in Phoenix.
Okay, and just to kind of Ed Sahakian, Edmund Sahakian, died in 2015. That's where my confusion was.
Ah,
Edward is still alive. So it's a whole family of Eds. Edmund, Edward, and Eddie. Ed, and Eddie of cigars is what this is, right? Throwback to
yep.
90s Nickelodeon there for everybody. Okay, so last question, we'll close it here. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And will we have a Lancero or a Candela in that lineup?
5 years from now, I want to be on the road doing events, meeting new people, continuing to sit down with owners and getting into new lounges. I'd like to have at least 15 facings by then, and I have a Candela on my mind. I have to be cautious because Candela is one of those tobaccos that if you don't do it right, it tastes bad.
Grassy. And I don't
And
mind that.
I mean, I do. I don't want to smoke fresh cut grass, but I have had a couple
I've smoked worse.
Candelas that I really did enjoy. I just need to find the right one.
And then my burning question is, will we have a Lancero from you in the next 5 years? And by the
And the
way,
next 5
I
years,
believe that should be a limited run only. I agree with you. They don't sell, but they sell in limited runs.
I have been toying with the idea of doing a special size because I told you Toros and Robustos is the only thing that I release. Uh, have been toying with the idea of doing a special size like a Torpedo or a Lancero. Um, Here's the thing, though. I need to have enough of a fan base to justify the production. So when that happens, then absolutely, I would 100% want to release one.
And we already know the name of it. It's going to be a stiletto. I think that goes along great with the Italian side of things, you know. Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Sorry for the little hiccup at the beginning, but we got off great and we had no issues afterwards. And quite frankly, I'm just too honest because if I didn't tell anybody, nobody would know anything ever even happened. But I don't like to pull wool over anyone's eyes or blow smoke up their ass. So thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on. I'm going to give you the opportunity to close the show out here. Tell everybody where to find you, how to find you, and why to choose you over their go-to favorite when they see you in a lounge.
So where to find me? I have if you go to my website, LaVegaCigars.com or LaVegaLounge.com, it takes you to the same place. You look under store locator, it'll show you all the lounges that currently support my brand. Because I'm not national yet, you can go to SlipperyRockCigars.com and they sell my cigars online, or call Slippery Rock Cigars. Talk to Joe. Great guy. He carries the entire line. He ships everywhere. That's where I send people to get them. And the best thing you could do is if you do buy some and you try them and you like them, tell your local retailer about them. If they're interested, they can reach out to me. If they want to meet, I'll be on the first plane out. We'll sit, we'll smoke, and if they like them, we'll make a deal and try to get them into that lounge. As far as what to say to get them to smoke it over other cigars, that's a bit difficult because I don't do that. I would say if you're looking for something that fits the flavor profile that I provide, give me a shot. If it's not to your liking, then just don't smoke it. But there's so many cigars out there. I'm an advocate for this industry. I don't care what band is on a cigar. I just care if that cigar is going to bring me enjoyment. If my cigar is one of those cigars that brings you enjoyment, I appreciate your support. If not, I thank you for trying it, but no hard feelings. I don't take offense to anything like that.
And guess what, guys? If you try one of his that doesn't fit your profile, he's got 3 additional that one of them is bound to. Jimmy's never really wrong with quality of cigars. So, again, if you respect Jimmy and you read his stuff and you respect his reviews, give LaVega a shot. Go on their website, check out the retailer locator, find a retailer near you, and buy one. I would say the 2 cigars I had tonight, which was the Tazero,
Primo and Terzo.
Terzo. I'm just the worst at pronouncing everything, man. I'm so white. And the Primo, absolutely at an absolute minimum 5-pack to box worthy for sure. So these will be in a staple in my humidor going forward because I really like that Terzo. very, very much. That was really good.
I appreciate that.
So until we see you all again, thank you to all the partners of this show. Without you all, I would not be able to continue going. And without everybody watching, obviously I wouldn't be able to continue going, because what's the point? Nobody's watching. But because you guys do watch, the show happens every single Thursday, and it won't stop until you stop. So if you like the show, please subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Rumble, subscribe to me on YouTube. We've got a lot of great shows packed for the rest of the year. And this has been another live episode of the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here at the Smokin' Studios. And we've had Aaron. I'm not even going to try to Paoletta.
You actually got it right.
Wow, yes, I do get it. Hey, a broken watch is right twice a day. LaVega Cigars on this week. Give them a shot. Jump over to LaVegaCigars.com. Find a store. Smoke them up. And until we see you again, smoke what you like. Smoke as often as you can. And have a great